Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. So, are you bored of 8-3 dailies? Well, you know what? I recently found myself in Suramar, and it felt good. It felt good to be back. It's funny just how the strengths of Legion continue to show themselves. Right now in Battle for Azeroth, you know, the game is all about making your numbers bigger so you can get bigger numbers, and there's not that much else past that. There's not really a massive amount of content. But the strength of Legion's content is that so much of it actually stands to today, and it really does reveal what Shadowlands needs to deliver. It was rather different to BFA, but they've both got one thing in common though: raids. So what better time to head over to today's sponsor, Twitch.tv, and check out the ny'alotha Race to World First. Now, after the incredible success of Uldir, Dazara Lore, and the Eternal Palace, the guilds have really leveled up their productions, and I mean, it's great. You'll even see the likes of Preach, Mr. GM, Automatic Jack, Rich, Final Boss, and more on the casting desks. It's a really great thing to see the game that we love do so well there, and even if you can't raid Mythic, I mean, most of us can't, you'll get a great look into that world. And what I love is the casters really give you an accessible way to experience that, and we are probably in for a tighter race than ever. It really is incredible how tight it is this time, so this is the one to watch. And the WoW community on Twitch, it's massive, and past the world first race, I'd recommend hanging out in Preach's chat. They really are a great bunch. Now, as this is published, it is the big push before the final reset of the race, so a perfect time to tune in. So head up twitch.tv in my link down below, and with that, let's get going. So, in Legion, in addition to all of that number progression that you had for your character, well, you had your artifact weapon collection, your artifact weapon appearances, you had tints for all of those appearances, you had your class mounts, your Order Hall campaigns, the Order Hall set, plus the hidden artifact appearances, and probably a few other things. And then the raids, they had tier sets, something Blizz got for BFA, and what all that means is that even right now in 8.3, there's a bunch of relevant feeling stuff to just go do in Legion. There are loads of storylines, loads of mounts, loads of appearances, you know, things like the Argus Scythe, the Agrimar Sword, the Maiden Mace, the Xavier Shoulders, the Fox mount, the Suramar storyline mount. I mean, it's immense, isn't it? And so much of that stuff was class-based that there's probably, you know, still a bunch for you to do, and if you do it now, you're not going to have to deal with time gating. And I mean, yeah, this is a video that's mostly about soloing old bosses, but it's also one that talks about design. You see, if you want a Netherwing, you can go and earn it. Same for a Cloud Serpent, an Argent Tournament mount, right? There's content there in those old expansions that has stood to the game for years. Things like Legion's Chromie, as an example. Battle for Azeroth, though, it doesn't really have that much content like that. And part of the point of this video is just to show you that content is king, to really drive that home to Blizz, and that, you know, this is a role-playing game, and that ways to progress your character other than through gear are vital to your long-term success. So, with that said, let's get into it. Now, the first thing you'll want to do is unlock your artifacts and get your class order halls to the point where you can actually get the Balance of Power questline, because that's what's going to lead to you getting an artifact tint. Then the class mounts, they're from doing the Broken Shore stuff, which, I mean, look, it is fairly boring actually, but it's fast enough now that it's not time-gated. Then much of your time is going to be spent just doing bosses, but before we talk about them, I've got to actually poke Blizzard. So in the last Q&A, they actually said that at least 2 bits of gear would drop per Legion boss on personal loot. That's just not the case. It does make this stuff less rewarding. That's a big pity. Indeed, it would be really good if legacy loot rules would apply to the prior expansion, you know, to the live one, because those bosses actually for much of this expansion have been quite fun and challenging to do. So the goal today is to do normal and heroic of everything. Mythic is mostly out of scope for players with current gear, though that will change with a month or two of patch 8.3. But generally though, Mythic just means massive health pools, long fights, and just survivability slash DPS checks. It's probably something we'll revisit in the future past what I've dabbled in today. Okay, with that, let's get into the bosses. So I kinda lied, Emerald Nightmare, we're doing it at Mythic. At Mythic, Nithendra is a 50-second DPS check. You've basically got to kill her in that time or else her mind control mechanic will take you out. And you know what, this was fairly easy for me to do in current gear, so I'd say it's pretty much negligible, and of course in normal and heroic it's an absolute cakewalk. After that though, we've got the hardest one, and that is Ursoc. He really is quite a problem. So he's got this rapidly increasing damage, and that just poses a massive threat. I mean, after the third or fourth cacophony, you're probably going to be dead. And that means you've got to pump out like a near sustained 60k DPS to actually get him down. So you'll want food, flask, drums, pots. It's all about having an incredibly strong opener, and then of course save your personals for, you know, your personal like damage reduction cooldowns for a little bit later on. So yeah, on Mythic, it's pretty darn hard. On normal and heroic though, well, it's only scaled to 10 people. So yeah, the health pool's tiny and you can knock it out pretty darn quick. Then past that, we've got Dragons of Nightmare, which is easy enough. So because you can do cleave damage, you'll do a lot of DPS. Now, your goal here is to kill the boss before you get 10 stacks of Mark of Ysondra, and if you do that, you will win. But if it reaches 10 stacks, well, you'll be slept for 30 seconds, and then the mythic mechanic will kill you. So get that before it reaches 10 stacks. The cleave damage actually makes that pretty darn easy to do. So it's an easy clear on mythic, which means an easy one on normal and heroic. And then next up, we've got the druid lady with a really hard to pronounce name. So she's really easy. Don't stand in the webs. The spiders that spawn there will buff her. So do that whenever she does feeding time. Just kill the spiders that drop down. That's essentially it. Honestly, it's not that dangerous. Just tank and spank. And of course, completely easy on normal and heroic. Il'gynoth is also easy in mythic. Just kill the tentacles, keep the small blobs alive, drag the blobs to the eye, then kill the blobs on the eye. The blobs then explode. That blows up the eye, and that gives you access to the heart of Il'gynoth. Once you're in there, just nuke him down, and you should be able to just kill him right then and there, but just be sure not to stand in the red pool. And that's pretty much it. Then Sargeras, he has mechanics, yes. You don't really need to do them, though. Just nuke them down. Do remember, though, that Aura of Dreadthorns is a damage reflect, so don't kill yourself with it. Maybe just keep on doing DPS, but pop a personal or something like that. But overall, pretty easy. Then finally, Xavius. He's actually really easy because of his corruption mechanic. So what you want to do is start the fight, and then head to the Dream Realm via the green portal, and then just let the ads attack you. Now, this fills up your corruption bar. Now, once you're fully corrupted, you get a 150% damage buff. But once that buff runs out, you're dead. But the thing is, because you went into the dream, if you die in the dream realm, you'll actually just be kicked back out into the normal realm. So basically doing that in the dream realm, getting your 150%, you get so much damage done that you pop out of the dream realm when it kills you, he won't have that much health left, and you just knock him over. That's pretty much it. Next up, we've got TOV, and honestly, Odin's a real pain in the ass, and we're doing this on Heroic, not Mythic. So, Heimdall and Hirja, they get a 99% damage reduction when they're close to each other. And you might think that makes this impossible, but not really, because some of their abilities will root them. So if you've got the movement, then whenever one of the bosses rooted for its ability, drag the other one away and damage it. And you want to take them down to about 35-ish% health. And that's because if they fall to 25% health, then they'll try to revive. So get them down to equal-ish health, about 30%, then kill one, and then kill the other before it finishes its revivified cast. And that's it. Pretty easy. Now also, ads will spawn in during this phase. They will have a color that corresponds to a rune, and you want to kill the ad on the rune. Basically, Odin has got this ability, and that's really pumped up based on how many runes are actually activated, so you just want to knock out a few of those runes. Easy enough. For phase 2, on normal mode, it's just kill him, that's it. But on heroic mode, well, Hirja spawns in, and that 99% damage reduction is back in play. But, I mean, it's the same thing, right? Whenever Odin does, I think it's Unerring Blast, that roots him, so you just want to drag Hirja away, and then DPS her until she goes away, and that's, well, pretty much that. The only thing that you've got to watch out for, especially with today's damage levels, is that Odin will go into phase 3 at 55%, and if Hirja is still up, then he'll have that damage reduction, and that's really going to suck, so don't have that happening. And yeah, that's it. You get rid of Hirja, and then you want to push Odin into phase 3. And once you do that, just kill him as fast as you can, and you really will have to, as spear damage does ramp up pretty darn quickly, so just kill him fast. There you go. That's Odin dead. Next, Gwarm, and honestly, it's a straight tank and spank, but I mean, just, you know, take the same color of the breath every single time, and that's it. It's easy. Then finally, Helya, so nuke her into her second phase as hard as you can. You want to do that before she casts Taint of the Sea on you. Now, people with Dispels, they're going to be fine, because you can just Dispel Taint of the Sea, but otherwise, it just does a lot of damage over time, and pretty much will kill you if you get it on you in that first phase. So basically, big nuke at the start to put her into phase 2. And then phase 2 is pretty simple, just kill the tentacles, that's it. When you kill all the tentacles, that puts her into phase 3, and then you just want to blast her through phase 3 as quickly as you can, and I mean, yeah, that's pretty much it. On Heroic right now, the health pools really are quite tiny, because of course it's scaled to 10 players, and you've got 8-3 gear, so really pretty darn doable. And then next up, we've got the Nighthold, and to be honest with you, on normal and Heroic mode, the bosses all fall over dead. It is so easy that I didn't actually have to think about a single mechanic through the entire thing. So yeah, that one, just tank and spank. absolutely everyone, and let's move on to Tomb of Sargeras. So, Tomb of Sargeras, once again, it's easy enough in normal and heroic, but there are a few things that you should know. Goroth is a very easy tank and spank fight. It is soloable in normal, heroic, and mythic. I did it in mythic. Just, nuke him down. That's pretty much it. Then, Inquisitors, it's similarly easy. I soloed it on all difficulties, including mythic. Just stand out of the stuff. Whenever your bar is full, use your extra action button, which takes you into the cage, then attack the blob, pick up the orbs to reset your bar, then go back out and DPS. That's it. It's easy in all difficulties. Now, Harjatan, well, he is more challenging. So he is killable in Mythic with a lot of prep and perfect execution, but to be honest, that will be out of range for most players. Basically, every time he gets 100 energy, he casts Unchecked Rage. Now, this causes his physical damage to increase by 100% each time it happens. So as you can imagine, after a few of those, he just one-shots you. Now, Unchecked Rage is actually dodgeable because it's a frontal cone, but you'll need like Fel Rush or maybe Blink to deal with it. So overall, Harjatan is a big DPS survivability check. Normal and heroic, though, they're basically the same mechanically. With that core thing anyway, with the Unchecked Rage, but the numbers are small enough on his health pool that you should be able to just blast through him. If not, you might have to drop it down onto normal. If heroic's maybe a bit too much of a challenge, maybe you just want to ensure you're like, maybe bringing drums or something with you so that your burst DPS at the start is enough to just get you, get it killed quick enough. Then there's Mistress Design, and she's easy and normal and heroic, just tank and spank. Damage was not an issue, just nuke her down. Don't stand on the stuff. It's really, really simple. And to be honest with you, the same goes for Sisters of the Moon. Once again, another extremely easy fight. You don't have to think, just on heroic, just go there, kill him. Next up, Desolate Host, though. So this is easy on normal and heroic. You want to nuke the engine, right? And if you're teleported into the other phase, the one with Soul Queen in it, then you want to click the little wells around the outside of the room to phase back in to the main realm. Now, the Desolate Host spawns at 30%, and you want to kill it. Now, if you kill the Soul Queen in her phase, then the whole fight resets. So what you want to do is focus on the engine and then the host, do it in that order, and it will be an easy clear. Next up, Maiden. It's another easy fight in normal and heroic, though you just need to do one mechanic, right? So she'll teleport away to the other side of the room, you want to run over to her, and then you want to DPS her down and destroy her Absorb Shield, and once the Absorb Shield is destroyed, interrupt her. Rinse and repeat, and you will win, but if you don't interrupt her, you will die. Next up, Fallen Avatar, another pretty simple one. What you want to do is tank the Titan NPC such that she blocks the green beam. That actually slows down the Avatar's energy recharge, so just do that while damaging down the Avatar. Eventually, the Avatar will get up, he'll smash the floor, you'll fall down and just keep on damaging him, and if you kill him before he smashes any of the floor in the lower realm, then yeah, you'll get an achievement, so that's pretty nice. Then finally, kill Jaden normal and heroic, and you know what? Heroic kill Jaden almost had me. So for phase 1, just damage him, get him to 80%, and that's it. There's no point soaking the pools or really doing anything mechanics, just straight deeps. Now, the intermission is what got me. So Demon Hunters have got excellent survivability, but they don't have an on-demand heal, like say Flash of Light or something like that. And this does mean that the 1 minute long intermission phase that's pretty much constant damage was a bit of a problem. He would actually just slowly kill me, so I had to use personals and a health potion to solve that, so that was fine, but most classes won't have an issue here because, they can maybe do a Mage Barrier, a Vivify, a Holy Light, a Crimson Vial, something like that. They'll all deal with that intermission phase pretty darn easily. Past that though, phase 2 is pretty darn simple, just DPS him down again. Then finally, for the last intermission, you just want to find Illidan in order to gain sight, and Illidan is usually located around the sides of the room. So find Illidan, get your sight, kill the ads, that's pretty much it. Then phase 3 begins, and just kill him as fast as you can, and that's pretty much it. Demon Hunter self-healing did make this mostly trivial on heroic, but you might need to think for your class how you're actually going to stay alive during it. Then next up we've got on Taurus, which honestly is rather mixed. So Grothy Worldbreaker is totally doable on all difficulty levels. All you've really got to do is deal with the tank mechanic, which is called Fel Bombardment. So whenever you cast that, you want to run back and then just, run. You want to kite it because, it's a projectile. If it does hit you, you'll take decently substantial damage and you'll actually get knocked up. And there was one time this actually led to me dying from fall damage, which seemed like a bug. But anyway, just, rinse and repeat, easy enough. Now, Hounds are easy and normal and LFR, just stack and burn. Heroic is a big problem though, because Heroic is only really soloable if you can break a fear or survive the 18-second long fear. Now, the good news here is that for the mount farm, like, don't sweat it. You only need to do normal or LFR because the mount does drop on them. But for Heroic, yeah, I mean, that fear was pretty much a blocker to me getting that in Heroic, which, I mean, yeah, kind of sucked. Then next up in our soloing exploration, we've got Portal Keeper and Antoran High Command. Both super easy. Just don't use the portals, don't use the pods. They both risk despawning the boss, so just take whatever boss is in front of you, nuke it down, easy enough. Then there's ANR. Now, she might be a little bit of a problem for the slower classes out there. Sorry, Paladins. Basically, she's in the middle of the area, right? And there's loads of different paths around her, and there's waves of enemies that will spawn in and try to rush her. But what's really important is the large mechs. These will spawn, walk a little bit, and then just damage her super fast. So really, the key to this fight is movement. Now, first, there are jump pads around the level. So you'll want to combine using those jump pads well with your extra action button, and you'll be able to get around just fine. It'll be really easy. Now, that said, there is one thing that does trip people up, and there's these like flyers that come in, and a lot of people think, well, if I'm a melee class, I can't kill them. What I found is that I could actually just stand on one of the little pillars, and I could actually hit them with my I-beam. So usually when they're just about to get to ANR, and like actually, you know, I guess go into her soul or whatever to kill her, yeah, they should be in melee range then. And this is actually where things get a little bit sad, because I'd love to say that it was Iminar time and you could kill him, but, well, his sleep canister is a big blocker to soloing. He'll just chain sleep you until you're dead, and that's pretty much it. Now, that said, if you've got a few weeks and you've got a friend, you can set up boss skips. So every raid has got certain quests to kill certain bosses 4 times. And if you do that, you'll unlock a skip to that boss. Now, you can use this to skip bosses like Iminar that can't be soloed, but you will need to have a friend help you out for the, you know, the 4 kills to actually get that skip. Now, the second of 2 such quests in Taurus lets you skip right to Agrimar. And setting this up is an incredibly good idea because both Agrimar and Argus are soloable, on normal and heroic mode, and they both drop unique transmog weapons for people who can use pole arms and 2-handed swords. So that's a really nice thing, but you will want to set it up. Anyway, with this video, right, between Suramar, Class Order Halls, Chromie, all of these bosses that I've talked about and all that they drop, there's clearly still a lot for you to go and do in the Legion expansion. And what that really shows us is what content can be evergreen. So, you know, those raids, they've got really cool looking gear, and that's tier gear. And that means that for every single class you've got a thing to collect. And then you've got all of your different artifacts. And then if you think about similar things from past expansions like, you know, the Pandaria Cloud Serpents, you know, I've talked about these things so many times, you get the drift, right? So many expansions have had things like that. They've had reps that are almost little side games onto themselves, like Netherwing. Whereas if you look at actually the Legion reps is really where this happened a lot, where the Legion reps were all homogenized and the BFA ones were homogenized, just that BFA didn't really have anything else to do. But you know, those BFA reps, are they going to be fun to go and do it like in an expansion's time? No, they're not going to be, but you can go do Skadis or Netherwing now. And I think what this really just shows to me is that evergreen content that's really building out World of Warcraft for the long term is super important. I mean, soloing old raids, that's something people have been doing for so long, especially with the transmog system. And that does make me think, like, Blizz, come on, just activate Legacy loot mode for Legion. Like, what are you losing by doing that? Really, you're not losing anything, and all you'd actually be doing is encouraging people to go and play the parts of your game that still have content, you know, unlike a lot of 8.3, which is a very, let's just say, very narrow patch. And I suppose for me, just comparing Legion to BFA in this regard, it just shows that BFA, I mean, I really think it must have been cut short, right? And that really sucks for BFA, but if I think forward to, say, Shadowlands, well, you know, those Covenants, that's, you know, that actually could be content that will stand to the game for quite a long time indeed. And if Blizzard can really make that work, then, I mean, yeah, that would be a good thing, because maybe in expansion 10.0, when we're in a dry patch, maybe you've not played 9.0, or maybe you only did 1 or 2 Covenants, then you have a thing to go back and do. And that really is just so much of the core of this video for me. It's the idea that there's a lot of stuff in World of Warcraft, and expansion should really be thinking in the long term. I mean, look, with BFA, you will go and, you know, you'll be able to get your, like, your big crab mount from Nazjatar. Sure, that'll be one thing you can do. It's just the BFA doesn't have as many of those things as past expansions, and I really think that's what Blizzard have got to focus on, because that stuff is just so core to an MMO, and really just making Azeroth feel like a big world with loads of things you can go out and do. And sort of further to that, there was one idea that I had, and that was actually having a mythic difficulty for some scenarios. So, you know, the scenarios you do for, like, the, you know, the 8.3 quests. Some of those, if you actually put a few more mechanics in there, they could be really fun solo challenges. I don't know what the gear reward would be, but that's just another example of, you know, could there be ways to get more gameplay out of the content that is in the game? Because one of the nice things about going back to solo old bosses in the prior expansion, and you know, I did this a lot with Warlords of Draenor during the Legion expansion, is that those bosses feel relevant. It's not like you go back to solo Lich King, you know, you throw a glaive at him and he falls over. No, some of these bosses you've got to think, right? If you're doing Ursoc, is it super complicated? No, you just got to DPS as hard as you can, but like there's still stakes there, and that's kind of exciting. You know, encouraging more things like that for a broader range of WoW content would be a really good thing for the game. So there you go. That's my thoughts on soloing old bosses. A few tips for sharing my experiences. This is something you can go and do that will be a lot of fun. And if you've not played through that Legion content, going back and doing your class order haul, getting some cool rewards, getting a few new artifact tints, I actually think that will be a lot of fun to go do. So I hope you found this useful and enjoyable. Let me know what your experiences have been doing similar content. And with that, thank you very much to you for watching. Thank you to Twitch for sponsoring this video. Go check out the Race to World first. It's going to be extremely exciting. It's so down to the wire right now. And yeah, with that, cheers. I'll see you next time.